Welcome back for week 8 of the Markidini crochet along. This week we're going to be working blocks 29, 30, 31, and 32. So we will be finishing up this large square on top of our week 4 section. Block 29 is making another lovely heart design using the simple stitch, the purl stitch, and the knit stitch. So I'm just going to help you get the placement for the stitches for this block, and I'll let you work through this chart on your own and meet you at the end of the chart. So for those of you making the small or medium size blankets, you are going to be joining your yarn at the top on the far right of this horizontal line on the last block of week 4. So you'll just attach your yarn in the back and pick up all the loops across the top of this horizontal line. Now, if you're making the large size, you also have this vertical line on the side of your piece. So you're going to want to count over 4 loops and join your yarn between the 4th and the 5th loop to join, and then pick up these 30 stitches across. So with your joining loop and the connection loop, you will have 32 loops on your hook for this block, and it'll be a total of 27 rows. So I've worked up to row 7. You can see a little bit of this first set of hearts, the smaller hearts in the corners emerging. And so it should look something like that. So remember, once you've picked up all your loops and made the connection, you'll have 32 loops on your hook, and you'll work 27 rows up the side. So if you wish to mark your 27th row, it should correspond to the top of these 2 horizontal squares on that side. Block 29 should end up looking something like this when you are finished. And of course, if you're working the large side, you will have this vertical line on the side down here at the bottom, just beside the block. Make sure you've worked the bind off row at the end of the 27 rows, and we'll continue on to block 30. For the large side only blanket, we need to make a vertical line beside block 29 here. So you will have your vertical line on the side at the bottom here that you will just join behind the border edge, and reaching in front of the bind off stitches, you will pick up those 4 loops across and connect to the first row of block 29. And then you'll work the vertical line all the way up those 27 rows, and then I'll meet you there at the top as we start to work the horizontal line. So for the large size, after you've worked your vertical line, you will not bind off, and you will pick up 4 loops across the vertical line and then pick up the 30 loops across the top of block 29. For the small and medium sizes, we will join to the top in the back of that border stitch of block 29. And then behind each of our stitches, we will pick up that loop. So we'll pick up 30 loops across. So we'll have the 32 loops on our hook for the medium and small sizes. The large size will have 36 loops on their hook. We are connecting to each of the rows of the horizontal line over here, making our 3 rows and a bind off row. For small and medium sizes, it will look something like this with the horizontal line across the top, and make sure there's a bind off row as well. For the large size, you will have your vertical line attached to that horizontal line and down the side, looking something like this for you. Now to prepare for our next couple of blocks, we want to take some stitch markers, and we're going to count over 13 loops for block 30. So from this vertical edge on the side here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And that will be where we start block 30. and from there we'll count over 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that will be the vertical line in between. And then for block 31, we will just join at our edge. Now, if you are working the large sides, you will need to, for block 31, you'll need to count over those 4 loops from your vertical line. So you're starting just behind the border edge from block 29. So for block 30, you will join in the back behind this 13th stitch, picking up loops across. 13 loops across. We'll have a total of 15 on our hook when we've made our connection. So we'll work a regular return pass for this foundation row. And mostly we are going to be working that reverse stitch, these green ones, that Tunisian reverse stitch and knit stitches. So we'll work 8 reverse, 3 knit, and 2 more reverse for 2 rows. And then we'll have a straight row of knit. And then the numbers alternate, or they change in the next 2 rows, straight row of knit, and so on. So I'll let you follow the chart through with that. I will do row 2 with you, and then you can go ahead and work your way through all 27 rows for block 30. So row 2, starting with those 8 reverse stitch. Remember, we just go around behind to use that back vertical loop to insert our hook and pull up our loop. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 Tunisian reverse stitches. 3 knit, 1, 2, and 3, and ending the row with 2 reverse stitches, 1, 2, and joining to make our connection to the second row up. Regular return pass of all 15 loops. Okay, so each row will have 15 loops on our hook, and it will be working 27 rows for block 30, and I'll meet you at the end of this block. So the first 7 rows will look something like this for block 30. And just want to remind you that it's a great idea to mark your 27th row up this vertical line so we know that we're ending in the right spot with this block. So block 30 will look something like this when you are finished. Remember to do that bind off row across the top. Then for all sizes, we want to work a vertical line. So we had marked this 4th loop over from where we started block 30. So in behind that, you will join your yarn, then reaching over in front of the bind off stitches, you will pick up the 4 loops across, connect to the first row of block 30 for 6 loops on our hook, do the regular return pass, and then we will just go ahead and work 27 rows up the side of block 30. Do not bind off at the end of this vertical line. So you'll have worked your vertical line up to the top, and remember, we do not bind off on this vertical line. Block 31, we will join at, for the medium and the small sizes, we will join at the border edge and picking up a loop behind, all the stitches across, connecting to the first row of the vertical line for 15 loops on our hook. And you can go ahead and work the return pass. For the large size, on your vertical line, you will count over 4 loops and then join behind and picking up the 13 loops across. Block 31 then, we'll be working some cables again in this block. So we've picked up our loops here, we'll do the regular return pass, and then I'll help you with a couple of these rows. I'll maybe do the first rows 2 to 3 and row 4 with you to help you get started on this block here. So for row 2 of block 31, we will start with 3 TSS stitches. 1, 2, and 3. We'll make 2 knit stitches, 1, 2, and a purl stitch. Then to work the forward pass cable, we'll take those 3 stitches off our hook, the 2 knit fall to the front, we put the purl back on, cross the 2 knit over, for our first cable. Then we'll work 2 TSS, 1 and 2, and then 2 knit again, 1 and 2, plus a purl. Take those 3 stitches off for that forward pass cable, put the purl back on the hook, cross the knit over, and end the row with 2 TSS, and then making our connection to the second row up on the vertical row. There we go. Okay, and if you did the forward pass cable, you will work that regular return pass. And you do not need to add the chain 1 in the middle of this cable. So if you, after the first 2 stitches are off, if you need to work the return pass cable, you'll take those 4 loops off, make the cable, and put the working loop back on. And then we just work the regular return pass. I will show you return pass cables in row 3. So here we'd be at the next set of stitches. Those last 3 I just took off would be what you would work the cable for the return pass, and then finish the row. So that's row 2. Row 3, we will start with 4 TSS. 1, 2, 3, and the 4th one is that purl that we cross, so it might be a little bit hidden. 4 TSS, we'll work 2 knit and a purl. Then if you're doing the forward pass cable, you would take those last 3 loops off to work the cable there. We'll work 2 TSS, 1, 2, and then we will do 2 more knit. I think I missed a stitch there. There it is. That hidden purl stitch that we crossed in the cable is our second TSS. Then we'll work 2 knit, 1, 2, and a purl stitch. And those last 3 loops you would use for your forward pass cable. TSS in the last stitch, and make our connection. We'll take off that TSS stitch. Then if we're working those return pass cables, we remove 4 stitches, the knit fall to the front, we put the purl stitch back on, cross the knit to the front, or to the front, or cross the knit back onto the hook is what I meant. And then we'll yarn over and take off those 3 loops from the cable. Then we'll take off the next 2 stitches, which was the TSS, and then we can remove the next stitches for our cable, put the purl back on, the knit fell to the front, and we cross them now onto our hook, working yarn back on, and we'll take those cable stitches off, and then we'll finish the row with those last 4 TSS and the border stitch. I'll work row 4 with you. Well, now the next 3 rows, the cables will go the opposite direction, so we'll sort of have this little zigzag of a cable in this square. So we will TSS in 3 again, 1, 2, and 3. Work a purl stitch, and then 2 knit stitches. Now that knit stitch is going to be in that 1 purl stitch that we crossed, so it's a little bit hidden there to find that, and then work that second knit stitch. Again, for forward pass cable, you take off those 3 loops. The purl stitch goes to the back, we put the knit on, and then cross the purl behind and put it back on our hook. And then TSS in 2, 1 and 2, purl the next stitch, and then 2 knit, and that first knit again will be that purl stitch that was crossed in the cable. 1 and 2 knit. If you're working forward pass, take those 3 loops off to work your cable. I will work this cable in the return pass. 2 TSS to finish this row, and then make our connection to the vertical line. I'll take off those 2 TSS, then I'll remove the working loop in the next 3 loops for my cable, put the knit back on, cross the purl behind, working loop back on. Take off that purl stitch and the other 2 stitches of the cable and take off the 2 TSS. Now if you're doing the return pass cable, you need to remove your loops, the working loop and the next 3, and work the cable now. And then we'll do the regular return pass of this cable and finish the row. So that's the first 4 rows for you. You can go ahead and follow the chart along to finish off block 31. So when you have finished working block 31, it should look similar to this, and you will make sure you have a bind off row across the top and fasten off. So next, for all sizes, we're going to work the horizontal line across the top. So you will just join in back at the border edge, pick up 13 loops across block 31, pick up the 4 loops across the vertical line, and pick up the 13 loops across block 30 and make a connection for 32 loops on your hook. So when we have our loops all picked up, you should have 32 on your hook. We will work the return pass plus 2 more rows and a bind off row to finish this horizontal line. So you can go ahead and work that now, and I'll meet you back here at the end. So just fasten off after the end of this horizontal line. Block 32, we will join behind that outside border edge, pick up our 30 loops behind this horizontal line, make our connection for 32 loops on the hook. And then you'll do your regular return pass, and I'll meet you back here to get started on the first few rows for block 32. So block 32 is this one here. We have some small cables and columns with some nice ribbing on either side. So for our chart, we will be working in simple stitches and knit stitches for we will be working in purl stitches and knit stitches for most of this block, with the little bits of cables thrown in throughout. So we'll work rows 2 and 3 together, and then I'll let you finish up to the end of row 12 for our final block for this week. So row 2, we'll start with 2 purl stitches. Oops, I'll try that again. 1 and 2 purl stitches, 3 knit. 1, 2, and 3. 2 purl, 1 and 2, and 4 knit. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 3 purl, 1, 2, and 3, 2 knit, 1 and 2, and 3 more purl. So this middle column is always 3 purl, 2 knit, 3 purl, and that will stay the same on each of our rows for this block. Then 4 knit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 purl, 1 and 2, 3 knit, and 2 purl. So you can go ahead and make the connection and work the regular return pass, and I'll meet you back for row 3. For row 3, we'll start with 2 cables, 2 purl stitches. Sorry, this is our cable roll. So row 3 starts with 2 purl stitches, then we'll work our 3 knit, 1, 2, and 3. 2 purl, 1 and 2. So that's our first column or ribbing on this square, and that will stay the same for each row. Then we're going to work a cable. I'll work this first one in the forward pass, and the next cable on this row I'll work return pass. So we'll do 2 purl stitches, 1 and 2, followed by 2 knit stitches, and then we'll be taking those 4 loops off the hook for the forward pass cable. We'll put the purl stitches on the cable holder to the back, knit stitches back on, cross those purl stitches and put them back on the hook. And we'll work 3 purl now. So this is our center section that always has this 3 purl. Two knit, 1 and 2, followed by 3 purl. 1, 2, and 3. And then we'll work the stitches for the next cable. So it'll be 2 knit and 2 purl. Now if you're working forward pass cables, you take those 4 loops off and make the cable. Then we'll end with those stitches that will stay the same for each row. 2 purl, 3 knit, 1, 2, and 3, and end the row with 2 purl. Make our connection. Then we can start our return pass. So you take off those first few stitches, 2, 3 knit and the 2 purl, and then we're at where our cable will be. So we'll take the working loop off plus those 4 stitches. We'll put the knit stitches on the cable holder falling to the front. Put the purl stitches back on our hook. Cross those knit stitches. Working yarn back on our hook. And then the return pass. So we will take off those first 2 stitches of the cable, and then with this cable, because we've crossed 2 over 2, we'll make a chain 1 in between and then take off the last 2 stitches of the cable. Then we'll take off the 3 purl, 2 knit, 3 purl, and we've reached our next cable. Again, you can work that, take off those loops to work the cable if you're doing the return pass cable. And then we'll just take off those first 2 loops, chain 1, take off the next 2 loops of the cable, and then regular return pass for the remainder of this row. So that's the first 3 rows of block 32. We will be making 12 rows, so you can just continue to follow the chart, making those cables where it says, and do a bind off row at the end of this block, and I'll meet you there to finish up this week. So when your block is finished, make sure you do the bind off row to finish off this last block. And then we will need to work our final lines for this. So if you're making the small blanket, this is where you will finish. You do not need the horizontal line across or the vertical line down the side. For the medium blanket, we will go ahead and join behind this far border corner, picking up the 30 loops across and connecting for 32 loops, and then making 2 more rows after that first row and bind off. So for your large size blanket, you have this vertical line beside our first block of this week. So you want to attach to that, pick up your 4 loops in front of the bind off row and connecting to all the rows on block 31 and connecting to the horizontal line and the rows of block 32. So you will finish a vertical line all the way along the edge. And then you will not bind off and just pick up your 4 loops of the vertical edge plus the 30 loops on top of this block to finish off the horizontal line. So that's for the large size only. I'm going to work my horizontal line for the medium size, and small size you are finished. So this completes week 8, and I will see you back here for next time.